Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle Tolsman, and you're listening to the Against All Average podcast, the show where business owners and entrepreneurs come to learn the skills and mindset to lead exceptional lives. Today, I am joined by the one and only Jake. I just figured out that light travels faster than sound. Spurley. What's up, Jake?
What's up, Kyle? How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm good. I'm ready to rock. I just got a fresh haircut. I'm so excited to get going today. How about you?
I know I'm good. I know I was just about to say, for the people watching on YouTube, it's new haircut, looking funky, fresh. I don't even know what I'm looking at.
Oh my goodness. My barber had to move into, basically he built a shed in the backyard because the place that he started cutting hair got closed down. And so him and his brother and a couple of his cousins built this whole hair cutting studio in the backyard. So I'm happy that they're back up and running.
That's epic. That's epic. Hey, I know, our special guest today kind of does some public speaking stuff. I wanted to know, do you ever do any public speaking stuff? Have you ever just got up on stage and you just completely choked? Any fun stories in that regard?
Oh, I don't have any fun stories about choking while public speaking, but I'll tell you what, like, public speaking is probably one of my number one fears that I go after each and every day. I'm a high school teacher and I still battle with some of the bigger crowd type of stuff. It starts to get me amped up, but I had a real turning point in my mind when someone said that when you get nervous before you public speak, it's just that extra energy you need to deliver your message. And so it was a huge mindset shift. I was just like fight or flight, like I've got to get the heck out of here. And then I started switching that and turning the knob over to the other side and saying, hey, my heart is pounding out of my chest because I need that extra energy when I take the stage or when I'm trying to deliver that message. So anybody out there that's fearing public speaking, one, you just got to do it over and over and over. And then secondly, the best way to get over that fear or lessen the anxiety is to make sure that you understand you need that energy to go out there and crush.
Oh, absolutely. It's so much, it's just like anything else. You just got to go do it. Keep doing it until it becomes kind of cool.
That's it. On our podcast, we love our sponsors. When you need all things digital looking their best, call our friends at FAEM Pro Services. Our friends will give you the above all average treatment with an awesome new website, custom graphics, social media management, and a full line of printing services. FAEM, the trusted partner of the Against All Average podcast. Our guest is waiting right there. She's ready to go, but we've got to introduce her. Jake, are you excited for this one?
I'm excited because your introductions are always fire. I think this introduction is going to be great. I know she's fired up. It's going to be awesome.
All right, here we roll. Our guest today is the host of Extra's Deal Drop and has sold over $220 million of products on live TV. Although she loves this job, she knew down deep there was so much more she wanted to achieve and many more people's lives she wanted to touch. In 2014, she started to make the change to helping entrepreneurs learn how to convert sales with video, create podcasts, and so much more. She currently is the founder of the Live Video Academy, co-founder of the Podcast Accelerator Academy, is a speaker, author, and coach, and is the host of the Fire and Soul podcast, which is top 10 in the self-development category. Here to drop some absolute gold is Michelle Sorro. What's up, Michelle?
Hey guys, nice haircut, Kyle. I don't know what the before looked like, but the after looks nice.
You didn't want to see it anyways.
No, you don't want to see it. It was kind of that COVID grow out. It was not something to embrace necessarily.
I hear you. Yeah, look at all that. I'm showing everyone my dark roots. Like I haven't had a highlight since March. Things are. I hear you. But I refuse to cut it off.
That's awesome. Well, let's let the listeners get to know you a little bit. Where'd you grow up and what was life like from about elementary age to high school? And then we'll start getting into your career post high school and post college.
Okay, cool. I grew up in the Central Coast, which is like maybe 180 miles north of Los Angeles on the ocean in a little town called Pismo Beach. And Life there was a lot of fun. I still have friends that I've known since grade school that still live there. It's a beautiful coastal community where no one locks their cars or doors, in their houses. And that is pretty awesome, that deep level of trust and feeling like you're safe. And I always loved acting and performing and leading. So I was always putting on performances and hiring like the high school talent when I was like 11 to come and star in my backyard productions. Pretty hilarious.
That's awesome.
And then I moved to Los Angeles when I was 18, tried a little bit of college originally, was highly allergic as it turns out, and went back like 12 years later to UCLA in my 30s. But yeah, and then it was just living in LA and trying to find my way, a little bit of acting, a little bit of, commercials and movies and things like that. Then found real estate. That was a big career for me. Had a lot of success in real estate. I didn't really love the sales and I didn't love working my ass off the way that I did, but I did love the relationships and guiding my clients to making conscious choices and not getting caught up in scarcity or all the things. But I still had this hankering for being on air and doing performing. So that led me to, right as the market took a big dive in 2008, 2009, when we had the financial crisis, I thought, you know what, it's now or never. And my little certificate at UCLA for broadcast journalism came in handy. And I started thinking about, well, what do you do like in your late 30s and you're used to a really good income from real estate, and how do you start over? And I was like, sales, real estate was sales, broadcast journalism, hosting. So I landed a job at what is now known as QVC. It was HSN at the time, but it's been since acquired. And that's not an easy job to get. They hire like one person new every 3 years, despite thousands of applicants. So I felt really proud of that. Worked my ass off. It was like a master's degree in live TV sales. And as I look back and connect the dots now at all that I do to help new experts start and scale a high integrity online impact, it all makes sense. It's like I had to learn how to sell $220 million worth of product so that I could then develop a blueprint and a framework so that I could teach anyone how to sell anything with high integrity. And that's where we are currently.
Wow, that's awesome. You talk about, I assume did you have any internships or did you just apply and you were lucky? Kind of dive, if you wouldn't mind diving a little deeper into how exactly did you land this job? Were you doing internships? Like, how did you get specifically there?
So I do not believe in luck, Jake, just so you know. I believe in preparation, strong visions, like a high vibration outcome already in your mind as if you're living it. So to answer your question in another way, I would do these, and I still do it with other things now, like taking my entrepreneurial business to like a whole nother level with like global game changers as my partners. I still do this very thing, which is I close my eyes and I imagine, for example, at that time it was driving on the lot, right? And you have to go through the security kiosk and the gate opens because you've been approved. You got your own little parking spot. And I would feel what that felt like and the euphoria and the gratitude and the honor and the privilege that it was to have that kind of a national television role. So that was my idea of luck, which is just visualizing it, crystallizing it. There's no internships for something like that. It was a straight up video audition to get me through the first pass. And then I was flown to Florida to meet with like some low level executives. I think I was flown over there 3 times from California, which is where I live, 3 different times before I finally met the CEO and the C-suite execs for a full day of 3rd round interviews. There was, drug testing, all the tests, psychological testing, everything in advance, because they have to vet very properly anyone they're going to let loose on live TV with only a 3-second delay. There's a lot of liability. And so I was very fortunate. I wouldn't say lucky, because again, I was really clear. I only had 2 options in all of America in order to get live TV sales experience. At the time, I didn't even think it was sales. I just thought it was live TV that would turn into, one day I'll be an Emmy award-winning entertainment host. And I really thought that would be the gateway. Turns out that was not my path. Something above had a different plan that I couldn't be more grateful for, which is just owning my own company and building my own business. But there were only 2 networks in the US, QVC and HSN, that are real big players. So it was like, I had to get one of them. And I was just absolutely crystal clear that it would be one of them. And I actually went to the final rounds at the competitor, did not get hired, was so devastated, thought I'd have to go get a job as like a pharmaceutical rep. I mean, because real estate was dead for 3 years.
Right.
And that's what I knew. I made $11,000 in 2009. Thank God I had this little nest egg that would tie me over. But 5 days later, HSN sent me a contract, and it was more money that I had even been making in real estate at that time. So it was a blessing beyond words.
That's such a cool story. You know, I always think about that as well. When we're talking about we're talking to different people, we throw that word out there, luck, just to see how they'll react. And I think it's so important for our listeners to understand that hard work gets you lucky. Like staying prepared and always working on your skills and your network, etc. That's where luck happens. You have to be putting yourself out into a space to be lucky. So that's so awesome that you continue to dwell on that fact, and our listeners need that more than anything. Can you talk about anytime you're on live TV? You talk about they just let you loose on live TV. Can you talk about a time where you screwed up, or you didn't enunciate something well, or do you remember any certain times things not going so well on live TV?
At least 1,000 times. I mean, over the course of in the course of 3 years, I was on air for over 4,000 hours. I mean, I was on air 4 hours a night, typically by myself, no commercial breaks except for 2 1-minute breaks in a whole hour. So you're talking by yourself. I mean, in any other world, you would belong in a straitjacket. It's bananas, right? So the first 18 months, I mean, I would be so humiliated when I would get off stage that I would just want to go crawl under my blankets and throw the pillow over my head, and I would cry, and I would swear that like I was never going to go back. I couldn't show my face because of how bad I messed up the day before. Yeah, and so after a while, you end up developing a confidence because you don't really have any choice but just to learn on the job in that environment. They don't train you behind the scenes to prepare you for live TV. The only way to prepare you for that is to throw you in the deep end of the pool. You've never swum a day in your life. There's no floaties, and you got to figure out how to get to the side. And so they put you in the overnights when you start. They know you have enough of a personality to probably get through, but to be honest, they fire at least 80% of the people that they hire and throw in the overnights by about month 3. So if you can get past the 3rd month and you're like, okay, I'm getting this, even though I may not seem like I'm getting it. So yeah, what I would end up doing is just being self-deprecating and just saying things right to the camera. That's how I learned to connect to the camera. Now I train thousands of others to do the same. Is I would say my mouth is not cooperating with my brain. I had an entirely different thought in my brain, but it did not come out that way. And I would just start laughing about it, and I would make jokes, and it would just be, it was honestly highly entertaining for a lot of people, as it turns out, when they would write me and send me notes and, you know, whatever else on social. So I got through those first 18 months where my boss who hired me literally said, the version of you that we've met in all these interviews that we've thoroughly vetted that we love, we will not see that version of you again on air for 18 months. We'll have every 3-month reviews. You'll swear you're being you. You'll swear there's not much more you can do. And we'll know that you're not being you until about 18 months. Because after 37 years at the time in the industry, they knew that it's about 18 months before you pierce through. And no joke, at 18 months, I was selling this big turtleneck teal green sweater by Twiggy the supermodel from the 60s. And I just remember not thinking about what I was going to say, just downloading like I am right now. I'm just not a care in the world. I'm just connecting in real time. And I got off here and I was like, oh my God, that was actually fun, because I wasn't so stressed trying to get all the right things in. Because you don't even have a producer in your ear telling you what to say or giving you bullet points. There's no cue cards. You're literally just riffing in real time, which is really weird when you have like these crazy, sometimes $10 million an hour sales quotas, right? There's so much pressure, and people don't realize the mad beast that TV shopping is, that I have so much respect for. I wouldn't do it again, no matter how much you paid me, but I wouldn't trade it. It was like boot camp meets Navy SEALs meets, felt like I was being waterboarded every night on live TV. I mean, it was so bananas. But I'm so grateful for it because it forced me to put my big girl boots on to learn how to get self-confidence in a way that is like, you think I was crap out there? You go try it. You go try it. It's like,
Right.
it is so much harder than it looks.
Oh, I'm still a high school teacher, and I'll be in my 11th year this coming fall. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but it might be online. It might be a hybrid, but it's the same thing. Like, you have a kid just like, oh, that was boring. Like, why do we ever have to learn that? And it's just like, okay, here's my badge. Here's my chair. Here's my stand-up desk. Here's my login. You try it. You try it. You go,
Exactly.
like, you're going live the entire time, whether you screw up, whether it's great, whether you're tired, nobody cares. You just have to continue to step up there and produce. So that's always, it's always interesting. So I feel you on that one. Talk a little bit. So you've had this experience selling high pressure sales. You've been in real estate. You've done a lot of different things where you would assume you had this internal confidence to propel you into your next business. Talk a little bit about the Tony Robbins Date with Destiny. When I was listening to your podcast episode, it seemed like that was the game changer. Like, that was when you started to really shift your mind into what you really believe that you're on earth to do.
Totally. I love the question. So it was actually 2014 when I moved home from QVC. It was called HSN at the time, but that was in Southern Florida on the Gulf side. So I moved back home to Los Angeles, and I was consulting in the TV retail business for a lot of brands that were either on those shopping networks around the world or wanted to get on the shopping networks. So that was tying me over. Then a company hired me to be VP of Business Development, that they wanted to actually own airtime on all the national entertainment TV shows here in the States, where you get like a minute or up to 5 minutes of airtime, and they're known as, quote, flash sales. And it's where vendors put their products on these shows like Good Morning America, Today's Show, you name it, for a limited time for a highly discounted price. Usually it's for brand awareness or to, offload excess inventory. And so because I had worked at HSN and QVC, and because I was a true expert in that space and I had a lot of access to brands, it was a really good fit for me. So the agreement is I will help you get shows. I don't know how to do that, but we got 7 shows, including Dr. Oz and Rachel Ray and Extra and some huge shows, The Talk. And all those segments are pretty much still airing, which I feel really proud of. These were multi-million-dollar contracts. It's expensive to buy a minute of airtime, classically $80,000 to $100,000 per segment. So it's very expensive. And you got to move a lot of product to make that up, right? And then to actually profit. But it was a really, really good business back in like 2015, 2016, when it was really on the rise. They're still around, but not quite performing the same. But so the agreement is I'll take this role because I didn't want a corporate role for anything, especially being at QVC. That was the first and only time I'd ever really had a role like that. And it turns out I am not a bean on a conveyor belt. It turns out I don't like being told what to do or when I have to clock in and when I have to clock out. I'm very defiant, as it turns out, when I don't feel aligned, but I can produce. And that was for sure. And so I said, yeah, I'll help you get these shows, but there's one show in particular that if we get a contract, I want to be the host on that show. Because for 10 years, I had wanted to be on a show called Extra, a multi-Emmy award-winning nighttime entertainment news show that at the time for 10 years, Mario Lopez, Tinika Ray, Carissa Thompson, all these beautiful people were on there, beautiful meaning inside and out. And I don't know why I had this dream, this hankering to be on that show, because I didn't even watch it, but that was what I had said and declared to the universe and anyone that knew me. And so we got the contract, and then I got the role. And so eventually I was able to get out of the corporate position and just host the segment. And I did that actually for 4 years up until middle of COVID. So end of April, I exited that contract. The timing couldn't have been more right and aligned. I was over it by the end of last year. And this whole segment was just canceled. It wasn't performing. They switched hosts and networks, and it was just a different audience, and they just weren't into the flash sales. So the segment was really losing money. It was nothing to do with me or the third-party integration partner. It was just the nature of the game, and it sort of had its season. But while I was on Extra for those first 2 years, first 1 year actually, all I cared about was living out my 5-year-old little girl dream, which was being a full-time Emmy award-winning entertainment TV host. And I thought that the ticket was, I had a little segment, right? I was on the show weekly, and I knew they liked me because they invited me to their holiday party, and it became like a family when I was on set, and they were very welcoming to me, which apparently they're not with all people. So I felt very fortunate, and excited about my future with the show. So when I went to Date with Destiny in December of 2017, I had one intention at that whole seminar of Tony Robbins, and it was, Tony, I didn't tell this to him directly, but it was like in my application, it was like, Tony, help me turn my 1 minute weekly segment on Extra into a full-time Emmy award-winning host role. Like, that's what I wanted. And by day 5 of that seminar, I just woke up. I mean, it was this very deep process that we did, which I'm not going to get into here. I highly recommend the program. Virtual, doesn't even matter. He's offering it again in December. And I just dropped to my knees because I realized that that was an old dream. It was a little girl who was looking for significance. And I thought that the best and most effective way for me to get that was by being on TV. See, look at me. I matter. I'm enough. I made it. And at Date with Destiny in my mid 40s in 2017, it was, you've already made it. You're good. And you know what you're here for. You've woken up and you can pretend to go back to sleep, but you'll never be able to be unawake. So you may as well just go forward. And the nudge, the whisper just got louder and louder. And I was literally and figuratively like on my knees, just tears just streaming down my face. My heart cracked open. Actually still makes me emotional every time I talk about it. I heard Sia's Chandelier track playing in the arena with 5,000 people. And it was the day when the whole seminar comes together. You've just unloaded your whole life and you don't know who the hell you are and what your background is. And it's like this white open canvas. And then you begin to put the pieces back together as you design it, which is why it's called A Date with Destiny. And I was like, shit, I don't want to go do all that. It feels too hard. I don't know how to be an entrepreneur. Like, it was just so crazy. And a little voice said, don't worry about the how, just start with a podcast. And I was like, okay, I think I can do that. So that was the beginning of that story. But it was Date with Destiny where I woke up to knowing that I was made for more. No shade on TV hosting. I was still on the show for 3 more years. It was, spring of 2020 when I left the show. Some of my best friends are from that show. We've traveled together. We've gone to Tony events together. And so it was just not for me anymore. I was on a different path at that point. And now as I look back and connect all the dots, I'm like, oh my God, everything led me to this moment. And what's so crazy is that when you make your life be about service and contribution and growing and giving, you have more fulfillment, as if that significance need that was my 5-year-old dream is met beyond your wildest imagination. That's what's mind-blowing, is that when you build a community and you're giving and you're serving and you're changing lives, you're like, what could be more rewarding than this? Maybe it's not unlike how you feel as a teacher going into your 11th year. I mean, there's just nothing more interesting, I think, and fulfilling, because most of my programs are training programs. It's not just me coaching and talking. I'm literally training them step by step, and they're learning new skills and they're changing their lives with a measurable outcome at the end of my programs. And I live for that. So yeah, I'm living my dream right now. And I didn't even know it was my dream 3 years ago.
And I think it's so important. You touched on, you had this dream, and then, one day you're like, that's not my dream anymore. Like, that dream was trying to fulfill a purpose that I no longer need to fulfill. I think that's so important. So thank you a ton for sharing it with our listeners, that just because you had a dream at one point doesn't mean that's, something that you still need to fulfill right now.
100%.
It's okay to change your dreams, right? Like, we're changing and we're evolving every single day. And if you're not changing your dreams, that's, I think that might be a separate issue that should be looked at.
And one of the let me keep on going on that one, Jake. I love it. Episode 2, Coach Reynoso that we had on, he talked to me one time. We work at the same school, and he was talking about the same thing with goals and just changing your goals and adapting your goals. And so many people have a goal. They're like, at the end of 2021, I am going to achieve this, or I'm going to impact this. But not enough people take a weekly look or a monthly look at their goals and adapt and change. And it seems like the same thing Michelle went through with her dreams. It was a 5-year-old dream, but now what is fulfilling for me now? So I just want to chime in on that. Go ahead, Jake, on the next question.
Yeah. So I think, you talk about your entrepreneurship, kind of what you're doing now. You've sold millions of dollars worth of products from stage, and now you create programs to help other people convert. Talk a little about programs. What are you doing with those?
So thank you. So the whole thing about being an online entrepreneur and a heart-centered leader, or whatever you want to call it, and I've been called a lot of different things. Luckily, they're all really nice things. And I've been called a courage activator. I've been called a media strategist. I like heart-based or heart-centered entrepreneur because everything comes from my heart. If it doesn't have like this epic alignment feeling to it, where it feels expansive and limitless in potential, where I'm coming from my highest level, then I say no. So like, for example, Jocelyn, one of my besties, made this introduction. I say no to a lot of podcasts because my time is so valuable, because I've gotten so busy. My business has tripled during COVID. I'm extremely grateful, honored, and humbled to say that. But when Jocelyn reached out, I was like, anything for Jocelyn, right?
Right.
So proximity always is power. But so action breeds clarity. I think that in general, and this is something that Jim Rohn says, who was Tony Robbins' first mentor, and he's a legend in self-development, and I love him as well. And you can find a bunch of his books and stuff online, or sort of course, on YouTube. But Jim Rohn said that people highly overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I remember having a first year doing this, thinking, I'm rocking that quote out, like out of the water. And like, because I was so excited and grateful for all that I was able to accomplish in 1 year. But now 2 years, like 3 months in, I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I would have never imagined that I would be doing these things with these people. And so it's blowing my mind. And so now I'm aware of like, yeah, man, in 10 years time, I'm going to look back and I'm like, okay, Tony, I now understand why you're the legend. And Jim Rohn, right? Because after 43 years, you know more than ever that quote is so true. So with action breeding clarity, when I first got involved as being an online entrepreneur, it was my podcast and masterminds. I had a ton of different masterminds, which is where I met Jocelyn, actually, because she joined one of my masterminds. And after about a year or so of doing that, it just dawned on me, again, action breeds clarity. It dawned on me that I was sitting on this gold mine called How to Sell Anything on TV, and $220 million worth of product sales in my arsenal of expertise. And I was like, why am I not utilizing that as some sort of a framework for a program? Because I work with a lot of startup coaches and trainers and people who are just getting going. And so that's when things started to morph. And I was like, well, what if I could take my one-to-one coaching model that was always like my high-end program, and I could turn that into a group format. And so it took about 6 months to flesh out. And I turned it into a digital course that I teach live, so it's not evergreen. And that was the beginning. As I taught that course, which is called Live Video Mastery, and I've taken a US presidential candidate through that, former NFL players, Fortune 500 CEOs, to stay-at-home moms and school teachers and realtors and attorneys. I mean, you name it, it's been so diverse, mostly coaches and trainers, but there's also been a lot of other type of very interesting, very diverse people and colors and sizes and shapes and all the things. But as I started to do that, I realized, what am I really doing? Like, if I had to identify a mission, what is it? And I was like, so I started asking my community, hundreds of people that I had trained at that point, what would you say I do? And I got a bunch of different answers, and I basically took them and I put them together, and it was like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it was like, I'm on a mission to empower millions to be seen and heard exactly as you are. So as I started, like, okay, that's what we do with live video, right? I teach them my sales framework, which is the 7-step pitch framework to sell anything to anyone at any time, no matter what. And on live video, which is a disruptor for marketing, especially now, we're not turning back. It's just, the algorithms go up, so your content gets seen, you reach more people. You build that know, like, and trust factor on steroids, because you can't hide behind live video. So they trust you more, they like you more. And I teach you how to make people like you more, just little simple things that are super authentic and high integrity. But it was the end of last year when I was doing this New Year's Eve party, when I was really reflecting on 2019, second year in business. Business had tripled. And I was like, what do I really connect my success to? Where's the leverage? And I was like, it's my freaking podcast. My podcast has opened more doors. It's given me more credibility, more leverage, more authority than anything else that I do. It's led me to speaking on stages next to Ariana Huffington and Dave Asprey. I'm like, what? How is this possible? And I was like, what if I could somehow take my students or my community members through a podcast program where we publish them by the end of the program. So now we've run 2 rounds of that, and we've published 53 podcasts, which is in alignment with my mission of empowering people to be seen and heard, right? So podcasting and live video. So those are my 2 programs. Neither are open right now, so I'm not selling or pitching anything. They're completely sold out. But that's been pretty amazing to take them through these programs so that they have a platform and that they too have a better shot at getting more guests on their shows or putting their word out there, building that brand awareness. You know, it's critical in these times because it's very noisy and very saturated. So you got to cut through the clutter.
And let's continue on a little bit. I want you to give our listeners 2 key takeaways about live video, how to be great on live video, and then 2 key takeaways, what separates a great podcast from the others? How do you break through the noise? What tangible things can our listeners do if they're wanting to either go live more and build that trust with their community, or they want to start a podcast to, again, become more of an authority and open different doors and increase their network?
Okay. So the first one for live video is, number 1 is just try it. Like, this will be my bonus before I actually hit first 1 and 2 tangible takeaways. So just try it, right? Hit that blue courage button, which is what we call it. It's the go live button on your smartphone. Just go for it. I have a Facebook Live challenge group that has almost 4,000 people in it. It's just straight up people from all around the world practicing one thing and one thing only, and it's going live every day. So most people start there, and then after about 30 or 60 days, then they go off into their personal page because that group is closed, safe, and private. What happens in that Facebook Live challenge group stays in that Facebook Live challenge group. So in there, I offer up a lot of like free master classes and tutorials and things like that. And the first 2 things that I say always is learn how to connect right to the camera lens, right? So even on these Zoom calls, when you're doing podcasts, you guys can see I'm looking you right in the eye because I place my finger over where I think the lens is. And if my screen fills up, whether it's a laptop or a mobile device or a tablet, then I know I found the right spot. So I look directly there because my viewer, whomever that is, that's going to make them think that I'm talking right to them, right? Instead of if I'm down here looking at the screen, there's no connection. It's not personal. It's not intimate. So that's the first thing that I do. And that's powerful because it takes a lot of gumption and you suck and it's awkward and it's weird in the beginning, but you just get better. The second thing is that I play the 80-20 rule on social media because I built my business with no Facebook ad spend, no marketing spend, and an email list of under 1,000 people. And none of them are the right people, by the way, on that email list. It's like friends and, you know, family members and old colleagues or real estate clients, but you got to start somewhere. And so what I say is the 80-20 rule is 80% of the time when you're on social media, doing live videos or written copy for just a standard post, you want to talk to your ideal client avatar, your ideal prospect, 80% of the time. Just, that's it. Don't spend, you know, all this time trying to figure out what you should talk about. Just talk to them, right? And you can bring up stories and testimonials and transformations and breakthroughs and whatever you think would fit with your area of expertise and how you coach or train or what your podcast might be about. 20% of the time, have it be lifestyle, right? Time with the kids, in the backyard barbecue, you know, maybe a day at the beach or all the things. So the 80-20 rule, that's for live video mastery. For the Podcast Accelerator, the thing that I have found is the first thing is you got to understand the numbers. So on Apple, which formerly known as iTunes, which is about 75 to maybe 80% of podcasts. Spotify's getting up there, but it doesn't have anything on Apple right now. So the main player is Apple. There's 700,000 podcasts live on Apple right now. That could seem like a lot, but if you actually dig into the research, and we know the research because we teach this, there's actually only about 400,000 episodes that are active. Right? And active means a podcast episode has been released within the past 12 months. If it's been 12 months, probably not coming back to the show, most likely, right? So 400,000, well, if you look at the 7.8 billion people on the planet, it's 0.06-ish% of humanity that has a podcast. So if people are like, it's too late, it's too saturated, not me, how will I ever pierce through and cut through the noise? It's less than 1% that are doing it. Get on it and make it happen. Right? The second thing is that I would say for me, and the thing that I teach the most in our Podcast Accelerator program is we ask our podcast brand new hosts to exist in the moment with their guest. We don't cultivate coming in with pre-planned questions. I realize you guys did your research. We tell them, do your research and have maybe 5 questions max, right? But you really want to exist in the moment, because that's where you're going to get the gold. And that means your guest is going to say something, then you follow up on that. And before you know it, you're down this rabbit hole, which is where all the magic is, right? Instead of being so concerned about waiting for your guest to finish, and now you're asking your next question, but you missed the gold and being able to exist in the present moment. So that's the thing that we recommend. But of course, it doesn't mean we say don't research, don't know who your guest is, because you want to be able to weave in a little nugget when appropriate by existing in the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Those are some amazing things that they can just take away. Thank you so much about that. Talk a little bit about, I know there was some fear and some uncertainty when you started your entrepreneurial journey. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with fear and how you get through those times where your mind's like, oh, I couldn't do that, or no, that's scary, and it starts to push you in a way that's not productive in your life? What is your relationship with fear?
Okay, so I now have a 2.0 relationship with fear. When I was starting and I got that hit at the Date with Destiny seminar, and I was on my knees, heart cracked open. So I was really receptive, but I also had a lot of anxiety, because my number one former flavor of suffering was, what will others think? Right? Lusting after other people's approval. And there's not a single soul on the planet that can't relate to that on some level. Oftentimes it's women more than men, just to be really honest. And so the fear was attached to that. It was so significance driven. And how could I put anything new out there unless it was already perfect, right? So what I had to just remember over and over and over again is, be willing to suck until you get better, right? Be humble enough to suck until you get better. And also, there's a phrase that I use all the time with our new podcasters, which is, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. I nearly didn't start. My podcast went live, and I called my producer, because I do have a podcast producer. And I said, Jenny, take it down. Take it down. We've made a horrible mistake, because my old perfectionism started comparing my very first episode to Oprah. I mean, that's just so bananas, but that's what the ego survival mind can do. It hijacks any common sense of consciousness, right? Fast forward to embracing the fear and taking action anyway. Now, the 2.0 version of my relationship with fear is, the more uncertainty that I am presented with, the more that I just run toward it. Because I have learned that uncertainty is where all the magic of life is. Everything that I want currently is just outside my comfort zone. Everything I have that I'm grateful for currently was once outside my comfort zone, right? It was a hard journey to get comfortable podcasting, to get comfortable on live video, even with my hours and hours and hours of live TV experience. That was a whole nother game, right? Because if your favorite flavor of suffering is what will others think and wanting their approval, and now you go live in front of all your quote friends and family on social media, the stakes have never been higher, right? The number one fear with most humans is public speaking. You said it yourself at the top of this call. You had public speaking on a live video in front of all your friends and family, where you've only put up perfectly curated, filtered photos for the last 10 years on Facebook.
Right.
Now you're letting yourself rip in real time, and you're owning yourself. Well, in the beginning, you don't really own yourself. It's awkward as hell, but you get better and better and better at it. And that's just what we're all looking for, is that progress. So my relationship now is, I believe that fear and peace, fear and joy, fear and excitement can coexist. And that's what I look for in life.
Yeah, that's so important. That's everything that I run towards right now, is something that, makes you a little bit scared. It puts you out of your comfort zone. And usually you need to learn another skill, or you need to sharpen your skill to step on that other edge of fear. I think Jake has one last question for you before we finish up the call. Let's keep this thing rolling along.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to continue down a little rabbit hole that you opened up there of not only fear, but kind of I think a lot of people are kind of fearful of expanding their network, right? And like the three of us all got connected because of our networks. You have Tony Robbins, we have all these people in our networks. How important do you think the network is to people just starting out, or how important is your network?
Oh my God, it's everything. I think that there's a lot of things that I say, but one of them is that, you know, the new currency in coaching and starting your coaching business is community. It's also collaboration. Like I just partnered not only with my Podcast Accelerator, but with Live Video Mastery, my 2 training programs with Jay Shetty. I mean, that's just so mind-blowing to me. That wouldn't have happened without a community where I've had a few students in my programs and in his programs, and then word got out, and all of a sudden I'm connected with his team, and now we're off and rolling. John Lee Dumas, one of the top podcasters on the planet, Entrepreneurs on Fire. We just went into collaboration for the Podcast Accelerator because that's what he's all about, is fostering a podcasting powerhouse community. Yeah, it's more powerful than ever. I was on a webinar last night with Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul guy, right? Like, and all of a sudden he's leading us down this whole other avenue because of community. So it's never been more important. And to think that anyone can do anything on their own these days is just, why would you, right? Like if you add enough value to someone's life and you've invested with them, for example, and then it's an appropriate time for you build up your training program or your podcast or whatever, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to ask. I'm going to see if I can get that door open, see if they'll be on my show. And it's a win-win for everybody. But you said something at the very beginning of your question, Jake, which reminded me of something around people are afraid of building community or they're afraid of expansion. And that is no joke. I will tell you this, a couple of my mentors talk about this regularly and I couldn't agree more. So I'm going to share it here in case it's helpful for anyone listening. And it's that the only reason why you're not growing like your following or your community, your email list, your Instagram following, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever your favorite platforms are, it's because there's a very good chance, and it's probably by like 98%, that you're not vibrationally and energetically ready. And I know that for sure now. When I was leading programs with like 26 people and then I had over 100 people in them, that is a whole different level of like presence and leadership and having to manage all of that, right? And like go from like 500 downloads to like 5,000 downloads per episode or whatever it is. It's like everything grows. So you have to expand. And when you expand internally and you're ready for bigger and greater and you want to serve at your highest level and keep the intimacy feeling of a smaller group, but you know that you can serve because you've got the right team in place. It took me 2 years. I now have 4 team members, but it took me 2 years of trial and error and being so afraid to let go. And I was finding myself holding on and I was contracting. And I was saying to the universe, so to speak, which is what I believe, everything is spiritual, I'm not ready for bigger. And the moment that I put my team in place and I could just trust them and delegate, okay, you go do that. And it's okay if it's not me, right? You can get it done in your own way. Everything started to expand. It's amazing. The universe is so precise. So you've got to first tap into, where am I around this? Am I ready for more? And I say you are so made for more. So go for it, but be very clear about where you are within. Does it feel expansive or are you in contraction? Because if you're in contraction, you got some more work to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. In order to grow the podcast, we need your help. Please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and tell a friend about every episode you find value in, and share the episode on your favorite social media platform. If you like the episode, please rate the episode and leave us a review. You can find us at Against All Average on all your favorite social media platforms and at www.againstallaverage.com. Another big shout out to Michelle Sorro and this episode's sponsor, FAEM Pro Services. And with that, we thank you for listening to the Against All Average podcast. We'll see you next time.